Hi, once again, welcome to Branco Broadcast. I am Bob Branco. We have another successful author to talk about this evening. Mary Highland is a guest. She's going to be talking about her latest book, The Bumpy Road to Assisted Living, A Daughter's Memoir. Sounds very interesting, and I recommend all adult children especially read this book and be inspired by it. But I don't want to steal Mary's thunder, so Mary, go right ahead, and you can give us your background and your presentation, and then we can take questions.
Okay. Thanks, Bob, for inviting me. It's an honor for me to be among so many published authors tonight. I understand that we have several folks who have published with the help of DLD Books, and Leonore is on the line as well to chime in whenever she feels like it or whenever I need some help. So I'll just start by giving a little bit of my writing background. This is my first book. However, I have been published in Chicken Soup for the Parent's Soul. Back in 1974, I was published in Red Book magazine. I've had several articles published in Dialogue with the Blind magazine and an article in the Columbus Dispatch, and of course many newsletters. And I have a blog called Seeing It My Way. That's all one word, Seeing It My Way. And I've enjoyed that, writing for that since May of 2012, right about the time that I moved my mother into assisted living. So I started a journal of my experience moving my mother into assisted living. She, like many older people, didn't feel that she needed to move. She was 90 and still in her own house. She was 92 and still in her own house. But she lived alone up on the top of a hill out in the country. And there were many of us who worried about her being up there on the hill. But she insisted that she was fine. And as she deteriorated in her health, I had to have many arguments with her about various help. For instance, I wanted to hire somebody to come in and take care of her during the day. Well, she didn't want to have somebody sitting there looking at her all day. She didn't need that. Well, she had a full basement, and that's where her washer and dryer were, and she was up and down those steps, and I didn't want her to go up and down the steps, but she insisted on doing that. And she was starting to get a little unsteady on her feet, so I insisted on her getting a cane. Oh, she didn't need a cane. She was fine. And it was such a stigma. That was an old person's thing. So I did buy her a pretty cane with flowers and butterflies on it, and she eventually started using the cane. And then we had the fight about the transport chair and a fight about the lifeline, and on it went. And then friends of hers started calling me and saying, you have to do something about your mother. She's starting to get forgetful, and she's getting kind of cranky, and, this type of thing. Well, here I was, 300 miles away, totally blind. I live alone. I'm not married anymore. My kids are grown up, but they're busy, and they have their own lives to lead. So what was I to do? I just felt helpless. I just didn't know how I was going to handle all this. And in the meantime, my mother was not ready to move. She was telling me, now I'll know when it's time for me to move into assisted living. She would say into a home, because she didn't have that in her vocabulary. I'll move into a home when it's time for me to go. And if I don't know, you'll tell me and then I'll go. Well, I did tell her, but she didn't go. She just felt like she was still in charge of her life. She was in charge of her life and everybody else's for all of her adult life, and she wanted to remain in control. And so it was very hard for her to give up that control, but she finally agreed to go. Well, in the meantime, I had shopped for just the right place, and I wanted a place near my house, preferably within 5 miles of my house. And I found 7 different places, but only 2 of them were satisfactory to me. So I visited each of them with the help of my friend Eve, who was just a godsend. She was my angel, as I say in the book. She came forth and she said, I will take you. I will help you find a place for your mom. So she took pictures and I took notes. We talked to the executive directors of all the places. We took tours. We even talked to some of the residents. And then I wrote up my notes with a heavy leaning toward the one that I liked the best. And then I presented them to her in large print because by this time she was losing her vision. And she got to choose which one she wanted, which of course, funny thing, it was the one that I had chosen. And so then we started to make plans for her to move. Now that was not going to be an easy feat since I didn't drive and I couldn't see. In fact, I learned a lot about this whole process. And one thing that was really, really important was that I should have gone down to where she lived in southern Indiana. And I should have gone there and really taken a closer look at what I was dealing with. But back to Eve, I was just feeling so helpless and overwhelmed by this whole thing. And Eve, just out of the blue, said, would you like for me to take you and get your mom and bring her up here? So I live in Columbus, Ohio. It's 300 miles away. And I was so grateful to her. And that's a lesson that I think a lot of blind people can learn, is that when an opportunity comes up like that, we often don't want to take advantage of our friends, and we, maybe would rather hire somebody. But here was a friend who genuinely wanted to help me, and I accepted her help. So she drove me down to Mom's on a Sunday in May, and we packed her belongings for overnight and a few of the things that she did not want to trust movers with. And we took her to a hotel that night. That was a Sunday night. And on Monday, we drove her to Columbus, and at the same time that the movers brought all of her stuff. And I say stuff with a capital S. My daughter and I said many times over the next week, too many things and too much stuff. And that's another lesson that we learned throughout this process, is that even though we think there's too much stuff and too many things, it's the things that older people hold on to as if they are holding on to the memories that those things represent. So it's very hard for them to get rid of it. So when my mother had been moved into a 1-bedroom apartment down in French Lick, Indiana, she had volunteers from her church, and they had just stashed stuff in corners and along the walls and everything. They didn't know what to do with it. And my mom was totally overwhelmed by it all because she had been living in a 6-room house with a full basement, all of which were stuffed with things. And so she didn't realize how much stuff she had. And when I got down there, I was just completely overwhelmed as well. In fact, when the movers moved her belongings and we met the movers had gotten there before we did, and my daughter was there to help them place the furniture and things, and she said later it was a little terrifying to see box after box after box of stuff. And they even said there's no way we can get all this stuff in this assisted living apartment. And so the book is about how we managed to deal with that, starting off with the physical stuff and then the emotional stuff of moving into assisted living and losing control. And while blindness is a part of the book, it's not about my blindness. It's always in the background because it does play a part. In some parts, it's more prominent than in others, like in the chapter where I talk about her going to the hospital. And I was with her for about 6 hours, and there she was with a broken hip, and the morphine was wearing off. We still hadn't seen a doctor, and she was coming out of that morphine drowsiness, and she realized that she had to go to the bathroom, and she was hungry. And I knew nothing of where anything was, and I couldn't help her. So I struck out to find a nurse, and that wasn't easy. And that was one of the times that I really felt blind in this process. So there's a chapter about that in the book. So that's kind of a start of what the book is about. If you would like to ask me specific questions or you have comments to make about your own experience, I'll be glad to talk about that.
Well, Mary, this is Leonore. Everybody, I would like to let everybody know that, to me, one of the very, very best parts of the book, or several parts of the book, but aspects of the book, are all the journal entries that you have, Mary,
yes.
covering different years. And I think that makes it very unusual because it's not just a, blow-by-blow description.
Yeah.
Getting your mother moved and all of that. You reveal so much more in those journal entries and a lot of observations on life in general. And then another part of the book, everybody, which is really, to me, just amazing and wonderful, is your long description of your trip to England that you made with your mother. And I believe she was in her late 80s at that time. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point. That was really when I began to realize that the role reversals were starting.
Right. Right. Because, of course, that's even, late 80s, that's a very advanced age at which to take an overseas trip. And a lot of people, even in their 70s, would hesitate to do that, I think. And so first of all, I really admired you for doing that with her. That was so kind of you, and you seemed to get an awful lot out of the trip too. But yeah, I want the audience to know here that, that was definitely, she definitely shows a lot of difficulties that arose during that trip that were signs that her mother, would not be able to go on being independent. Mm-hmm. And it's just also beautifully told and very dramatic in places, but not overly dramatic. It's just really, really well told. It really draws you into the story. And I think you just paint such wonderful pictures with your words, Mary. And I found the book very, very moving and beautiful, and certainly something to which so many different people can relate. My father died at home, but my mother was in assisted living for a couple of years before she died. And I know I'm now 71, so of course I know an awful lot of people who have had to have their parents in assisted living. And it's never easy, and it's often, extremely difficult for exactly what you talk about, them not wanting to give up their independence and having to deal with all the possessions. And then, of course, there are all the medical details and financial details, and it's just close to overwhelming for most people, So I just think you handled it amazingly well, and I can't recommend the book enough. It's just so lovely, and so I hope all or most of you will read it. It's only, it's $3.99, right, in the ebook, I think.
Yes.
And $11.95 in print, so it's quite reasonable. It's not so long. It's
and David has sent it to Bookshare, I believe.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I believe he has. Right. Oh, and that's something I wanted to mention real quickly is that David has found out that it's easier to send books to Bookshare than he thought it was. So he's in the process of doing that for a lot of our clients. And so if anybody listening, if your book is not yet on Bookshare and you want David to do that, please let him know that. I think that's a wonderful service. I didn't know about it until, just a couple of years ago. And I think that's great. So it's available lots of ways for people to read, and, of course, in ebook and print on Amazon and Smashwords and so on. So.
And that's a wonderful service, David, to do that for us, because I wouldn't have the least idea how to do that.
Well, it turned out to be less time-consuming and difficult than he had assumed, and so he feels kind of bad that he didn't, investigate it further and do this beforehand. But better late than never, and he's in the process of doing that with people now. So.
Hi, Mary.
Hello.
It's Steve. Congratulations. I think you're going to find being published I'm sure you were very excited when you found out it was out there. And I'm definitely going to give this book to my sister because my sister is caring for my mother in her home, and she's starting to have a lot of issues, and I think it will be really valuable for her, and I commend you for being strong, and I think I will read it myself because, mothers are very important. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, and I hope is it your sister, did you say?
Yes.
Your sister? Yeah, I hope she enjoys it, and she probably feels the same way that I did. Is that, I've heard of people just dumping their parents into a home, and they take them out for lunch or something, and instead of bringing them home, they bring them back to an entirely different place, and they think that they put one over on their mom. I didn't want to do that. I wanted my mother to be part of it.
And moving, I can relate to moving, how stressful it is at any age, but especially with the loss of control. I mean, that's really, I think, important for people to know and talk about, especially before it happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Mary. This is Linda.
Yeah.
I just want to say congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that your book's out, and I can't wait to read it. You just touched briefly on something that really interests me is the role reversal that you begin to go through. I went through this with my mother and my aunt that I took care of, and it was really one of the most difficult parts for me is knowing what's going on when that begins to happen. And so I would like to hear a little bit more about how you figured that out and what you did during the process. Or maybe you just knew right away that...
No, I didn't know right away. And
I didn't either.
I didn't recognize the signs. I knew that my mom was getting old and forgetful, and she was demonstrating some of the things of, complaining a lot and that sort of thing. And I was talking to a friend of my friend Eve, who she's in the business of helping people find the right place to go, assisted living or nursing home or whatever. And she said, well, how long has your mother had dementia? And I said, she doesn't have dementia. She's just old. She said, oh no, what you've described is dementia. Oh, really? Okay, then I had to sort of step back and rethink this. And so I talked to a psychologist about this, like, should I move my mother? I heard that when you move them, they lose all their friends and then they're depressed and I just went through a lot of hemming and hawing myself as to what I should do. And I didn't realize then when she had Alzheimer's, I didn't recognize it. I didn't realize it. And I found myself being drawn into arguments. And my daughter said, do you think that you feel like you're arguing with a 2-year-old? And I thought, yeah, that's about what it's like. Because you can't reason with a person who can't reason. And so it's senseless to get into arguments. And you do anyway, because you're not used to your mom being, a 2-year-old. Did you find that, Linda?
Oh, yes. I think that was one of the most stressful things for me when I look back on it, because with my mother, there was just a distancing that I saw in her. When I would go to visit, she just sat there and watched TV, and I would think to myself, why did I even come to visit her? All she wants to do is sit here and watch TV. And I just couldn't figure it out. I don't know. And then we noticed that she was wearing the same outfit a lot, and then we began to see that she was looking dirty, and I couldn't figure that. I thought maybe her skin was looking like that because she was old, I didn't realize she's not bathing, or she's not doing her laundry, and she would call in the middle of the night, and she would be hysterical, and she would say that the house was cold, and we would go up there. Well, she didn't know to go turn the thermostat up, things like that.
Yeah.
And then when I took care of my aunt, she was more argumentative and fighting. I would go and fix her pills for the week, and she would be all mad at me for getting into her business and doing that. And then when I was ready to go, she'd say, I'm just going to take them all at one time. And my response, well, Aunt Betty, you go ahead and do that. If you want to die, take them all at one time. I would be so mad at her. So it's so hard, and you don't know what you're dealing with. I didn't. And but with my aunt, because I had been through this with my mother, I really knew that we were really getting close to, really being on the edge with her. And so I just, I hadn't really ever talked to anybody else that's been through this. And that's one of my biggest sorrows, is that I didn't recognize it sooner and get help sooner. And you do have regrets afterwards, no matter what,
Yeah. Well, and I say in my book at the beginning, in my introduction, that I wish that I had read this book when I was going through it, because a lot of times that's what we need. We don't recognize that what we're dealing with until we hear somebody else's story, and we think, oh yeah. That's kind of what I'm going through. Wow.
I think your book is going to be so valuable to so many people.
Yeah, we just have to get it out there, and Leonore is doing the best she can to do that. And I thank you, Linda, for putting me in touch with Leonore, because I didn't want to self-publish. I wanted to be published by a traditional publishing house, and nobody wanted it. And,
nobody wanted it.
And they're going to regret it when I'm on Oprah.
There you go.
That's wishful thinking.
That's right. You got to dream big.
Yeah.
Mary, my name is Abby Taylor. I'm in Central Wyoming. And I wrote a memoir last year about how I met and married my late husband and then took care of him for 6 years at home after he suffered 2 strokes. And I can relate to a lot of your emotions, especially your guilt. You know, you say in the book, I wish I could have done this differently. I wish I could have done that differently. And I felt it the same way, especially in the end, in the last few days of Bill's life. I wish now that I could have spent more time with him, could have been more proactive in his care, making sure the staff turned in more frequently, that sort of thing. But in the 4 years since he passed, I've come to realize that, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda don't do any gooda. So I'm just wondering if you have to now come to this realization.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for that comment.
Well, have you also come to that realization as well, or are you still kind of in the shoulda, woulda, coulda stage?
I personally am not. I felt like I had 2 years to deal with it, and you had 4, right? In your situation, 4 years.
He passed away in 2012. Yeah, it's been 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my regrets are in the beginning stages when I didn't realize what I was dealing with. And but on the other hand, I felt like I did as much as I physically could. I had to arrange for rides to the assisted living home, and that wasn't easy. And my mother did not watch TV. She did not play bingo. She had a hard time hearing and seeing, so it was not easy for her to interact with other people. And so I had to entertain her, and that got to be quite a chore, but I did the best I could in the circumstances. And I felt I would go to like these support groups that they had at the facility, and I would hear of people that would come to stay with their loved one all day long, every day, and I felt guilty for not doing that. But I realized that what was I going to do? I mean, those people would like play cards, say, with their loved one, or they would sit and watch TV, and my mother did neither of those things. And I tried to introduce her to talking books, because she couldn't read print anymore, but she didn't really understand what I was trying to show her. And that's when I realized that was, the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, when the radio reading service I thought was going to be great for her. But first of all, she couldn't hear it very well. And second, she just didn't understand what I was showing her. So it was difficult, but I kept trying.
Well, Mary, there's the interesting aspect of your mother's music career. She played the piano all her life. It sounds like practically, and
yes,
was still able to play. Interestingly enough, when she was in the nursing home. So that one thing at least seems to have been something very valuable and helpful for her, and fun for the other people too. I love the part where you have the old guy, what's his name, Jack. How he comes and sings with her, and that he can run and sing, and so your mother and Jack gave the residents some concerts there. that was wonderful.
That was a touching part.
Yeah. That's
story
unusual that she played the piano.
It happened at happy hour. They had a happy hour.
Yeah.
Assisted living, and she normally didn't play, but after sometimes after the volunteer performers would leave, then she would, hobble up to the piano and play a little bit. And she did enjoy that. It really was. It was fun for me too.
Yeah, I think it's quite usual for those places to have pianos. Rather nice ones. There was one where my mother was, and there's one where my stepmother is, and And I don't know how many people play them, but they are there, if people want to, which is just great.
Yeah.
Because you said too that your mother didn't even like to exercise, so
right.
many of the usual activities that the old people can do, she just didn't want to do.
Right.
So it was great that she had at least the music.
Yeah.
This is Linda. I think it's fascinating how sometimes music is something that they have even when speech is gone. That happened with my mother. My mother was a singer, and when she could no longer talk or make any sense at all, we would go for rides in the car, and I would begin singing some of the old hymns that she used to sing in church, and she knew all the words and sang along.
Yes.
It was as though there was nothing in the world wrong with her. And then when we'd forget a word or say a wrong word, we'd start giggling and laughing. But so that's how I communicated with her in those final couple of years, through singing with her all the time.
Yeah, I have one.
It's amazing.
I have one chapter where I talked about the hospice music therapist that came in, and that was just such a relief to me to have her there. And she, the first time she came, she had both times that she came, she had a portable keyboard. And the first time she came, my mom, she by that time she had lost language, but she put her fingers on the keyboard. She couldn't play anymore. And this was really at the very end, Leonore. This was like she was still playing the piano in March, and she died in August. So she went downhill pretty quickly after her fall over Memorial Day. So she put her fingers on the keyboard, and the music therapist pretended that Mother was playing a duet with her. And then the next time she came, she just sang, and she encouraged me to sing with her. And Mom couldn't make a sound, but I just got right up next to her and sang to her. And that was as much a therapy for me as it was for my mom. and you've probably heard of these studies where they've taken like a Walkman with earbuds, and they put them, or a headset, I'm not an earbud, a headset on people who don't have language anymore, and their faces just light up when they hear the music, and they start bopping around, with their head, and you pick music that they like. And I have a friend whose mother is in a nursing home, and she put Beatles music on for her because she used to love the Beatles. My mom would have preferred like old standards or big band music and things like that. But I didn't have the equipment to do that for her. But we did listen to CDs in her room, and we would. This was before she still had language and was able to talk, and we pretend that we were conducting the orchestra and everything, and that was fun to do.
Yeah, you have that one photo in your book of you and your mother sitting on the couch, listening to a CD.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming at that time she still, was perfectly cognizant of what was going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So that
Hi, Mary.
nice.
This is Jay from Boston.
Hi, Jay.
First of all, congratulations on your book. And, of course, you are in good hands with Leonore and her terrific husband. They are just lovely couple, and they know what they're doing when it comes to editing book and publishing. So that's great. Now, I have a question for you. Are you only child?
Yes.
That makes it so interesting because, well, most of all, in many of the culture, I know this, when it comes to toward the end of the life for a parents, usually girls are the one handles it better than the boys. Boys just grab them and put them in a nursing home, but the girls they're with them at the end. And I think you did a good job, and looks like that's the best way to handle. Now, when you took her to assisted living, and they provided that apartment for her, or you had to buy it, or how was that handled?
You rent it. You rent it by the month, and it's extremely expensive. At the end of her life, we were paying $6,500 a month.
Oh.
That included her care. That wasn't just the apartment.
Right.
That was and it would have been less than that, except that she insisted on having a separate bedroom. Most places have a studio apartment where there's just one room, but no, not my mother. She wanted a separate bedroom, and since she was used to getting what she wanted, that's what we did, and she had the money, so we made too much, about $100 too much for Medicaid, so we had to pay for everything.
Yeah, but lot cheaper than nursing home. Nursing home will be almost twice. So
that's true.
Well, a lot of the places have a continuum of care. You start out with assisted living, and then you have the nursing aspect. My stepmother is now in such a place where they have different levels of care, and she needs she needs a lot of care now. She's very disabled from having had polio when she was young, and she's now paying something like $9,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's very,
that's
not the absolute highest level. The most expensive level is for Alzheimer's care, I mean, when they really need the intensive memory care. So it can get extremely expensive. And then I have a sister in Kansas City who works in advertising mainly for a firm that handles that deals with high-end assisted living places. And she says some of the real luxurious ones can be like $15,000 a month or more.
Wow.
It can get
Yep.
$8,000 or $9,000 a month these days is not that terribly.
Highway robbery.
Yeah. Well, no, it's.
It could be higher though, but
It seems like it though. It seems.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
When you think about
buy a house.
It's really
you
not
used to
that
be able to
bad.
buy a house for that. In the old days.
Well, from what we paid, for her care in 2 years, we could have bought a house and paid somebody to care for her. But how did we know? It's just,
The common story, though. Yeah.
When my stepmother was investigating that for my father, it would have been way more for 24-hour care in the home. It would have been about $15,000 a month for the care in the home. So actually, the nursing home option is usually cheaper than the nursing care in the home. It's just horribly expensive, and it makes me really worry about the future, with all of us baby boomers who are aging and all our aging parents. And it's like, how are people going to afford it? I really just don't know. I mean, an awful lot of people just won't be able to afford it, and then what, So it's a terrible
Indeed,
problem.
then what?
Yeah.
I think somebody might have had a question. Did somebody have a question?
Well, I was just thinking, I know it's not easy because it's dealing with guilt and all that, but I mean, if it helps, if you did the best you can, I mean, I know it sounds kind of pat, but you have to get to that place where you said, I did what I could, and it's never easy because you're always going to second guess yourself. That's human nature. And just try to remember the good memories, like the music and
Yeah, right. One thing I wanted to mention, Leonore mentioned that a lot of my book is journal entries, and I really liked the way she handled that. We had quite a time coming up with exactly how to handle it to make it look different from just the regular text. And Leonore, would you want to talk a little bit about how you did handle that?
Sure, yeah. Well, at first, it's important to note that when you first sent us the manuscript, you did not make it clear that those were journal entries. I mean, you didn't have them marked journal entry and with a date and all of that. And so I was wondering, it's like you were going back and forth in the tenses and stuff, and I found that very confusing. So I remember I wrote to you and asked you, well, what are these parts, that seem so different from the main narrative about the the nursing home part, and you said, oh, they're journal entries. And so I remember very distinctly I had you, make a very clear list of exactly where the journal entries started and ended and the dates and with titles for them and so on. So just so everybody will know, the journal entries are generally not terribly long. I mean, 1, 2, possibly
1 page.
pages long.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not very long, but they're very clearly marked. They have their own little titles. Like, for instance, I'm looking at one right now. It's toward the end of the book, and it's called Red Hats at Assisted Living, Journal Entry, March 25th, 2013. And it's about how, you organized the Red Hat Society thing at the nursing home place. So it's very clear, what is a journal entry and what is the main chapter. The main chapters, let me just look at the beginning here real quickly. Won't take me but a second. The main chapters, let's see how many of them. There are 11 of them. They have their own titles, like Lessons Learned on the Bumpy Road to Assisted Living, Mother's New Digs, Navigating the Bumpy Road with Blindness, Christmas Warning, Defeated by Things Again, Remembering Mom Before She Got Old, etc. And so the journal entries, when they occur, are inside those chapters, but with their own little headings. But it's very clearly delineated, what is what there. And then I think you have a total of 7 photographs. And just so everybody knows, Mary did have a professional photographer come and take some of the photos. So, like this very beautiful one of you with your guide dog, Dora, there, Mary. I love that photo. So that's a very, very clear and beautiful photo. And then one that we put in the front was this lovely quilt wall hanging that her mother made for a wedding gift for Mary and her husband at the time. And originally we were going to put that on the cover and then decided against that. But there is a photograph of the quilted wall hanging. And then some lovely old photos of her mother, when she was not quite so old. And then a photograph of Mary herself. So it's a really nice collection of photographs. But in no way do you need to be able to see the photo, because I know, of course, many of you listeners are blind. In no way do you need to see the photographs to, get what the book is about. They just augment the text there. Mm-hmm. They just, and when we had a bit of a problem figuring out exactly where to put the photos, but you and your daughter were really good about, saying where you thought they should go, and so then it was a matter of arranging them. And so I just think they augment the text in a very nice way. But they're not necessary for understanding.
No, it's just nice for a visual effect. And would you describe the cover for them?
Yeah,
yes, the cover. Oh, this took quite a bit of doing again, but I went online. Of course, we have the title, The Bumpy Road to Assisted Living, A Daughter's Memoir. Oh, and I wanted to mention real briefly that Mary's last name is Hilander, but it's not Highland. It's just Hiland. So Mary Hiland, Hiland. And the cover, the background color is this very, very rich, beautiful blue, and then the title letters are in white, and the subtitle, A Daughter's Memoir, is in very pale blue, and the photo that I finally found after a lot of looking is just so lovely. It's just a stock photo from Shutterstock, but it's so lovely and touching, as it were, as you'll find out when I describe it, why I said that. It's a close-up of an old woman's hand. She's apparently sitting in a wheelchair, and she's wearing a blue sweater, so that's part of why we chose the blue. Mm-hmm. And the wheelchair is white, and her hand is resting almost on the arm of the wheelchair, and then holding her hand on the right in the picture is a younger woman's hand. So it's these two hands. She's holding her hand in a very gentle embrace there. And so you've got this lovely picture that really telegraphs, the frailty of the old woman and then the care of the younger woman. And what I liked about the picture, too, is that the younger woman's hand does not look like the hand of a very young woman, like it's not like a 20-year-old assistant or a granddaughter or somebody. the woman could be the other woman's hand. I think she could definitely be in her 50s or 50s, and it's just a lovely, tender picture, and it just looks great. It really does.
It really fits. And a lot of people say, is that your mother's hand in your hand? And I said, no, but it could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
So it could be.
Right. Yeah.
Hi.
And does somebody have a question? Because I had another thing I wanted to talk about.
I was just going to say that when you were describing, Leonor, you were describing the editing process. I was so blown away by your attention to detail. I mean, I've looked at my book and I was like, well, you cut the stuff that had to be cut, and you really enhanced it. And David did a great cover, and I just think. I really feel that you have a love for what you're doing because, you're not doing it for the money, that's for sure.
Well, that's good. But thank you so much for saying that, Steve. We really do have a love for what we do. I mean, we've both always loved reading and writing, and especially David. I mean, gosh, with his 27 published books of his own that he has.
Wow.
And I just love. I've loved editing. I've done it to a very slight extent much of my life, just helping like other students with things and so on. And we started the editing business in 2009, and we've now done over 45 books by other clients.
Wow.
We really do love it, and it's very, very gratifying. And we've just fallen into this little special job here of having so many blind clients, and I just want to say that we feel honored to be helping so many people, and we've learned so much about the world of
yeah.
And it's very gratifying to us. It really is. Very much.
Excuse me for a moment. Whomever's phone that is, please mute the star while that's ringing.
Sorry. It's mine.
And Mary, why don't you right now give out the website where we can search for your book and buy it?
Well, you could go to DLD Books, as in David and Leonor Dvorkin, dldbooks.com /Mary Hyland, MARYHILAND /
Yep.
And tell us where we can find them, or what sources.
Sorry?
What sites, what book sites are they available on, just so that everybody knows?
Okay, so you can go to DLD Books. That's the name of the website where you can. And then you want to explain that, Leonor?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can I just explain this a little bit so people will understand?
Go ahead.
Her website is www.dldbooks.com / Mary Hyland / and on the website it has a longer synopsis of the book, the cover, and stuff about her and so on. And it's also got all the buying links and places.
That's what I was asking about, the buying links, so that everybody is aware.
Yeah, but you could also, of course, just go straight to Amazon or someplace and get the book there. It's for sale on Amazon and Smashwords and also at Barnes & Noble and so on. But the main sellers are Amazon and Smashwords, and it's in print and ebook. And the only reason that you would need to go to Mary's website would be if you wanted to go there to be able to click directly on the buying links that will take you precisely to her book.
Right there.
Buying sites.
I'd like also to thank you, Leonor and David, for you're very quick with the updating my website, even though my book's been out for a while. You don't worry about, like I said, you're just very right on that. You're very committed, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much for saying that, Steve. We do try to help, and I was telling somebody the other day, we've got so many clients now with so many different requests all the time. We do find that we have to immediately take care of something, or else we would forget it. because there's so many different requests from people. But we do try to, get right on the task. And David is so fast. I mean, he just still amazes me sometimes. I tell him to do something, and bam, he's got it done in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Anyone else?
Yes, I just wanted to say something. I want to compliment you, Mary, on your book and the timeliness of the subject, and about the fact of having to do something for a loved one. My husband had liver cancer, and I had to put him in a nursing home at the end. And for years, I felt so bad. I said, for some time, I said, I wish I could have let him, die at home or at the apartment or something. But I did the best. I finally had to come to the conclusion with the therapist help that I did the best I could.
Right.
Yes. Right.
And you've done, I'm sure, the mother to love dearly. I'm sure you did the best you could. And I'm curious to know, what did you write for Redbook? Because it was on tape for a while in the 80s.
This was back in 1974, and it was the column called A Young Mother's Story, I think.
Okay.
And I wrote about being a blind mother. I had a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and so that was my first foray into having something published. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun. But I just wanted to tell you that this book is not all about sadness and a serious subject. I have one chapter that is all about the funny things that happen sometimes when you're blind. I have one. You remember some of you probably read Dialogue magazine, and there was you remember Abapita? Abapita, Abapita, ain't blindness a pain in the anatomy?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've written some things about, like, the time I put grapefruit in the chili by accident.
Gourmet, you're a gourmet cook.
Yeah, some things like that. So just to lighten things up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I remember once I mistaken sugar for breadcrumbs and for chicken once, and the chicken came out good anyways, but it was on the grill, and it tasted more oriental, and we had a good laugh out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Sour chicken.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what it tastes like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Abapita part is in chapter 10. It is very funny. It's a lot.
Yeah, I like that. I really do.
Journal entries, and it's hilarious. Yes, I got a real laugh out loud section for sure.
Yeah, there is laugh out loud section. Oh, another funny thing that this wasn't in that section, but I was talking about unpacking all the stuff, and like 24 wine glasses and steak knives and 6 sifters and all that. Well, there was a box of booze. She had a bottle of Apricot Brandy, a big bottle of rum, some Scotch, I don't know. And I remember that box of booze being moved from one place to another. And I say in the book, maybe I'll just have a rip-roaring party one day.
Mm-hmm.
So I wound up just pouring it out.
That's common.
Wasn't that good? What?
That's common, with the older folks. Because when I had to break my grandmother's house down, the older folks, they hid things everywhere.
Oh,
yeah.
And I went through the house, and I must have found $1,000. I found money in the weirdest.
Lucky.
Yeah, my father was like that. Depression survivors hide money everywhere.
Yeah. Well, of course, I never told anyone anything, and my father was proud of me. But other than that,
Well, it's 8 o'clock. Are we to end at 8, Bob?
Yes, it's about that time, Mary. And again, Great job on the book, and
Thank
great
you.
job once again for Leonora. Just for the record, there are 6 people on this line currently, as far as I know, that are clients of DLD Books.
Yep.
And all the clients are blind, just for the record. And Mary, we're happy that you have been added to the list and continue success with your book.
We'll see you on Oprah.
Thank you for letting me join the club.
We'll see you on Oprah.
Yeah, we'll see you on Oprah.
Yeah, we'll see you on Oprah.
We'll have to get Oprah back on the air first.
Yeah, we'll bring her on.
She left us for a while. Thank you
Maybe
again.
have her on Dr. Phil.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Really?
That one is...
No, we'll get her on the Today Show.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good morning,
Oprah would
America.
be good.
That sounds good.
Good morning.
Today's show might not be bad either.
Seriously, Mary, I do hope
I can get.
some kind of real national attention because I very seriously think it deserves it. You know, it's just a wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Don't
you so
give up.
much.
Just keep up the.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mary, for appearing.
Yeah.
Oh, so
My
everybody
pleasure.
heard the word. As far
Take
as we
care.
know,
Have a
it's
great
got
week.
the title. The
Okay, you too.